markets, speculation, and risk. This is the Chat with Traders podcast.
Welcome to Chat with Traders, episode 284. This is your host, Ian Cox, and I hope you've been enjoying the podcast. We often hear that having discipline is the key to trading success, but many of us continue to struggle developing discipline and good habits for trading, no matter how hard and how long we've tried. Could there be a deeper reason for this? As fellow human traders, we are commonly faced with our own programming that we are often unaware of. In this special episode, Sam Daghash, a professional coach and co-founder of the Conscious Trading Academy, specializing in helping traders overcome mental barriers, dive into aspects of my co-host, Tessa, and her trading mindset. If we cannot think greater than we feel, then this would compel us to be more aware of our mental states, which can sabotage our trading. I promise you this will be interesting. Let's dive right in.
Hi, Sam.
Hi, lovely to connect with you again, Tessa. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's good to have you here. Would love to learn a little bit more about your background and how did you get into working with traders?
Sure. So my background, I'm a master practitioner and a master coach working with various modalities in the neurotransformational tools. So these are like tools that works with our neurology in updating our conditioning, right? So our beliefs, behaviors, our emotional regulation, everything and anything related to our mind in a summary. And we can go in deeper in the conversation shortly. And how I came about working with traders, it was a coincidence. You know, I work initially when I started my career in the space, I was working with a lot of different backgrounds from all around the world, different people. And then I started coincidentally bumping into working with traders because we found like traders in Dubai is, you know, we have a big community of traders here. And that's where I'm based out. And initially I started working with them for other aspects of their life. And then it sort of somehow started pouring into trading. And then I started getting more inquisitive about trading and the trading psychology aspect of it, which allowed me to do more research and start to enable certain tools and modalities that work best for traders. And then my journey led me to working with traders from all around the world as I started expanding my reputation and people started to know about me, traders in the space. And then I came across my business partner today and friend, David Capablanca, through his podcast, The Friendly Bear. And then slowly but surely, obviously our relationship developed. I've worked with him personally and privately. And then obviously from there, it became more and more. So trading space is a space where I focus on at the moment. And from that relationship with David, we decided to initiate, as you know, the Conscious Trading Academy in the trading space, which is combining the mindset and of course the skill set of David and as a master 7-figure trader and his great experience working with the mind. So what's nice about the journey of David in particular and myself is that we started to go deeper and more deeper in the work to see what it can actually involve. Like there were certain blocks that was happening, which I think we spoke of in a previous podcast. And that just started to develop the tools and the areas that most support and are most effective for traders. So using David and myself and combining those skill set is becoming more and more specific to traders, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Ian actually interviewed David Capablanca last year, I believe it was last year, episode 257. And yeah, he's great. You know, there's a lot of terms that are thrown around, like, you know, there's trading psychology, you know, trading mindset and those things. I mean, can we define that?
Yeah, sure. So I can define it in the best to define it is in the context of what we're doing in our space. I think what's really fundamentally important to remember that we are beings of neurology, right? So we have experiences in our life that shape up who we are as an identity today, as a personality, and that's made up of our past experiences, how we perceive our reality, how we perceive the world, and more importantly, our emotional intelligence and how we react to certain things in our life. Everyone's different, right? So at the fundamental level, we have something known as our conditioning, and that's the area that I specialize in. So I want you to look at it as an operating system of who you are today. It's a sum total of your beliefs, behaviors, past experiences, your values, and what you think about yourself and what you think about reality, trading per se. Okay, how do you perceive yourself as a trader? What are the experiences you had in your journey as in trading? What are the losses? What are the, all of it encompasses in one. So, but most people forget, and this is a fundamental scientific truth today, is that we are unconscious beings. So 95% of who we are is habitual. We act, respond, think in a very unconscious way. And the moment our mind, which is the conscious mind, the 5% that is in charge of certain things, we autonomically and automatically react and respond to certain things in our life, right? And that is exactly the same aspect and exactly the same formula that applies to trading as well, right? So when certain things happens in our trading, we react based on the meaning we're giving that experience. And my role is to change that neurologically speaking. So I go in the depth of the unconscious mind. People know it as the subconscious mind. It's a popular word, subconscious, right? And I work with the neurology aspect. So I go, okay, so when you experience something in trading, how do you react? So when this happens to me, I react this way. I get emotional. I start to throw out the book of rules of my trading, and I start to react a certain way. So that reaction is the unconscious process of that identity and personality. My role is to lead with changing those reactions, changing those emotional responses that are affecting traders today. Because whether we want to admit this or not, a lot of the trading aspect is a lot of it is emotional, right? When we are in a trade, we start to have different thoughts that run through our mind based on what we're seeing. And now we start to respond a certain way. Some people are so disciplined that they exit when they need to, and some don't, correct? So that's the difference in personality. Those are the emotional responses. So my role, just to sum this up, look at me as a programmer that comes in and reprograms the mind for how it wants to respond and how it wants to behave. So if a person is lacking a behavior of being a disciplined trader, that's at the end of the day, it's a behavior, correct? It's a behavior. You either have it or you don't. What we do is we implement that. We put the fundamentals. So how do you become a disciplined trader? Not by talking, because talk therapy is just creating awareness. We actually provide the tools and the techniques. We call them neurotransformational tools that put the person in a very low state, calm state. If you like, think about it as hypnotherapy, think about it as quantum therapy, think about it as neurolinguistic programming. These are all tools or areas of work around the mind that enables us to recondition our mind, to think differently. And when we think differently, we feel differently. And when we feel differently, we behave differently. So it's all interconnected. It's not one thing or the other.
Also, I think it's important to know if our problem stems from deeper psychological issues, that affect how we think and therefore how we feel and behave, versus issues that maybe it's just more like, say, a trader just beginning, that maybe they're just lacking the skill set. Mm-hmm. They're lacking the technical aspect, or they have the wrong attitudes and mindset for trading, and not yet really, the deeper psychological aspects yet. So don't you think that's like, how do you differentiate between those
Very good question. So yeah. So just to take a step back. Now we look at a person, a trader. Now, when you need to look at trading as an education at the start, it's like getting a degree. You can't expect to come in and make money from the beginning. That is short-term thinking. Like when you go to study in the university, you spend 4 years or 3 years to get a degree or an education that enables you to go get paid at a job, right? The trading space, there is a misunderstanding. So you definitely have to have the right skill set and the right strategies and the right experience to become a profitable trader. However, there are traders out there that have been in the space for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years and even more that lack the mindset. They lack the right discipline. They're emotional. They have certain root causes from their past that enables them to, what I like to call, the inner child of them comes out and starts to throw their everything out of the window, because now they just there's fear, right? There is fear of missing out. There is greed, which is another emotion, right? So it doesn't really matter where you are. yes, you have to study. Yes, you have to have the right skill set. But as important, doesn't matter if you're 1 year, first year trading or second, you have to have the right mindset, and you have to believe in yourself, and you have to have the right language in your head, that voice that is supporting you, that is perceiving you in a way that is healthy for you, that believes in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself in the start and you just want to make a quick buck, obviously you're going to end up it's not serving you, the mindset. So the idea is having the right fundamentals, the conditioning that is creating that ideal personality to become a successful trader. As one of my mentors would say, something within you needs to change. So our personality creates our personal reality. So something about you needs to change, so you start having a different feedback and experience in your trading. You could still have so much skills, but you lack the mindset. Then you're going to constantly find yourself stuck, because there's the root causes. There's certain traumas in your past. There's certain things about your relationship with money, for example, or your relationship with a fear of missing out, or greed, or you're comparing yourself to others. There's many aspects that are psychological that stem from our past. And this is really important. So who you are outside of trading, if you remember, we had that conversation off camera, is what brings you in trading. Like, you are the same personality has an impact in trading and outside of trading. So if you're lacking something in your life, you will find that same thing mirroring in your trading as well.
One of the core differences I noticed between the trading profession and other professions is that in trading, especially for those who are, retail or independent traders, the main difference is that we have to kind of set our own rules and standards for trading. Whereas in other professions, like say if you're a doctor or teaching or other 9-to-5 office type of jobs or non-office jobs, if you break those rules, you get fired. Whereas a retail or independent trader, it's easier to just break those rules and not have any consequences that keep you from trading again until you improve it. Many traders, including myself, come into trading with the wrong beliefs and mindset and attitude about trading to begin with. And that just leads to compounding problems in trading. Just naturally, we're attracted to trading because of the freedom that it can provide. Not only financially, but the freedom from having to be in a job and answer to bosses that we don't like or other situations. So then the problem is we think that trading is the answer to all of our problems. But in reality, for myself going through this, is that I realized that you have to change your mindset. You have to have a professional mindset. You have to come into trading knowing that it's a profession and it has to be taken seriously.
100%. This is something that David always preaches at the academy. He always mentions, this is why he's very professional in the aspect of treating it. That's why we say you got to treat trading like you're going to university. The first three years, you don't even need to look at profitability. Some guys out there don't like to hear this. But it's easy come, easy go, right? So you have to look at it as building the skill set, building the mindset, making sure you treat this like a job, and you're the boss of your job. It's a business at the end of the day. You have to treat it as a business. And in business, we don't use emotions, do we? We don't. We're more logical. So what we do is we need to be able to manage our emotional state. And this is where most traders don't, because they're running away from something. They don't want to go to the 9-to-5 job, like you rightfully said. So now they're so desperate. That's an energy. That's an emotion. I'm desperate now. So now they take desperate measures and they take higher risks. And then sometimes they blow accounts. And so there's that pattern where they're running away from something towards the something else, and that's not serving them. So what we like to educate our conscious traders is, first and foremost, you have to have that balance in your life as a whole. So you have to be going towards something and not running away from something in the first place. Because when we run away from something, we're running away from fear of going back. So I'm fearful to go back to a 9-to-5 job. I want the life of freedom. But it's just finding that balance of, okay, well, how do I manage my emotions and take this more professionally and treat this with the right mindset, that if I put certain rules for myself, I have to adhere them, because I'm not worried about my boss to fire me. It's more of the relationship I have with myself, that I respect my rules. You see, when we respect ourselves and we respect our rules, we have, that's where confidence comes in, right? So we start to respect that we can be more disciplined. And that's an area where most traders, sadly today, are not disciplined because they keep breaking the rules and then patterns are formed. Remember, we go back to our neurology and our conditioning. It's all habits. So if I have a habit that I keep breaking my rules, and sometimes I'm lucky, sometimes I get away with it, but you could get away with it once or twice or three times, but there's going to be a time when you break your rules and that's going to be the end to your trading, or you're going to have a big blow. We all know this, right? With traders happening around this. So understanding that, fundamentally speaking, is I need to build the principles in my neurology of I need to see myself, behave, program my mind to be a disciplined person. How does a disciplined person walk, think, talk to himself? How does he hold himself as a trader? Right? We have to recondition, because if you've done something, this is how our mind works, by the way. If we do something in repetition of a pattern of 3, so those are listening. So a pattern of 3, if you have an experience 3 times more on a row, now you've created a pattern and repetition. So that creates a habit. So if I've done something 3-4 times and I have a certain emotion associated with it as well, it becomes almost like an addiction as well, because now I'm used to feeding through the hypothalamus in my brain that chemicals that make me feel a certain way. And those feelings don't necessarily always need to be good. They can also be negative feelings, but I'm connected to that victimhood mindset that the market is bad, my life is my job 9 to 5 is hell, and now I'm creating that reality that is pushing me away from what I'm actually meant to be striving towards, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. So there are many trading behaviors that we can talk about, such as entering trades too early or too late, or missing trades that should have been taken, or taking profits too early, or not cutting off losers, or over trading, under trading, revenge trading, or trading with no strategy, trading with too many strategies, or having issues scaling up, and the list goes on. Because there's so many areas, if maybe we can focus on a specific area for today. And I was thinking that would be exiting a position, and it could be exiting a position to take a profit, or exiting a position that is losing. Because if I was allowed to choose just one aspect of trading that I can work on to improve right now in my trading journey, it would be exiting trades. Because that is one of the hardest things, because I learned that many of us can be really good at entering, and we oftentimes choose the right setups. We oftentimes can choose the right positions and start off great, but it's the exiting that messes us up.
So let me ask you this question, if you allow me. Now,
Okay.
I want to make this practical for you, because you're a trader, correct? So when you put yourself in a scenario right now, a real life scenario where you are now meant to exit a trade and you're not exiting. My first question to you would be, why aren't you exiting? What comes up when I ask that question? Why aren't you exiting in time? What's the first thing for you?
Okay, let me go back to just a recent incident, and I actually wrote this down on June 13th. I was in a trade, and things were going well. The night before, I had everything, I had my trading plan and idea of what I'm going to do. And then in the morning, I had done my routine. I did some exercises, and I was like mentally rehearsing how I'm going to do better this time than the day before.
How did you mentally rehearse? I want to ask you that question.
I have been starting to visually, what do you call that? I've been doing mental rehearsals.
Explain to me your process, if you don't mind. I'm just want to know, want to break that down for our listeners. So what is the process that you follow?
Okay. And it's not very structured, by the way. I love to experiment on different things, but lately I've been mentally rehearsing in the morning. To do that, I'm also lying down, and I do my exercises, but at the same time, I do kind of relax, and then relax my brain, breathe, and I am visualizing. I have mental pictures of, when I see this, when I encounter this kind of situation in my trade, because I learned from last time when I messed up, this is what I'm going to do instead. And just kind of visualizing those charts. So I've been doing that.
I want to give you a tip. We call this priming your mind. there is a science behind mental rehearsal, which is bringing the brain waves to a specific level, to a specific theta level of brainwave. So now you're accessing the unconscious mind, the subconscious. Because if you mentally rehearse from the conscious mind, and you're just lying in bed and you're just a couple of breaths, it's not planting the seed. It's not creating the movie, right? So in order for us to access the unconscious mind, and I'm giving you some tips here, so this is going to be beneficial, you have to do something called as brain, heart, and coherence. So this is I would encourage everyone listening to this podcast to learn about brain and heart coherence, which is bringing you into a calm state, not the sympathetic, a parasympathetic state, where now your nervous system is calm and your brain waves move from high to lower brain waves. That is now opening the door to the subconscious. And when you do that, when you do the mental rehearsal, you have to first get yourself into a breath rhythm. So there's a specific rhythm of breath that you have to apply. We have a whole course on this. And what happens is, as you create this rhythm and breath, you now open yourself up, and you have to be a second person looking at this. We call this disassociation. So you shouldn't be in your eyes. You should be seeing it first as you're watching a movie, and then stepping into your body. So there's two approaches to it. So there's one, you're looking from outside as a second person, sitting on the desk, seeing the charts, rehearsing what you would do when you needed to exit that trade, for example, and then going in as in you're in your body, and you're also seeing it through your. So you see it both in both positions. You're creating what we call an integration. Now you're showing yourself, because the unconscious mind, for those listening, doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So when I close my eyes and I mentally rehearse a disassociation, it almost feels like this is happening now in front of me, and then I'm in my body, it's actually happening to me now. So if you repeat that, and repetition is extremely important. So there's a process, there's a whole therapy called time paradigm therapy that I'm a practitioner in, actually. So we teach that. And what that does, it's literally creating new neural pathways in your brain. So it's creating a whole neural network that says, oh, okay, so when this happens to me, that's my reference. That's how my nervous system, my unconscious mind is going to respond to that. So it's very effective, but it requires repetition, and it requires time daily to get that complete mind map integrated in yourself. So now when that happens, you know how to exit the trade promptly, and you exit it when you need to. Because remember, the part of you, and I want to get into that, I want to ask that question, but I just wanted to comment on this, because I think there's value here for yourself and for those listeners, that priming the mind, it's not about just closing your eyes and doing a couple of breaths and imagining it. No, there's an actual process to it in order to speak the language of the unconscious mind, right? So there's actual tools that allows you to do certain things that are scientifically studied and researched, that produce the neuroplasticity of creating something new in our brain, creating a new neural network, a map. So now you start to feel it and you start to see it. So we bring in the emotion, which is the glue, and we start to see it, which is the image. And there's a whole process around it. Again, I don't want to get into too much of that, because that's like a whole segue, but I just wanted to comment on that. So let's go back to the question of when you wanted, I'd love you to carry on the story.
Yeah. So that morning, after doing my what I knew as mental rehearsal, but thank you for sharing that, because now I'll try that.
No problem.
And so everything was going well, and I was feeling good and positive. The morning started and market opened, and I was off to a great start. I think later on, a few hours later, I've been watching my position closely. I had several positions on, and I was still doing well. But there's this one position that was going against the side of the trade that I was on. And I knew inside, consciously, I knew that I knew what I needed to do.
Yes, that's the conscious mind.
Because I rehearsed it too.
Yes. Okay, cool. So you have an idea.
Yeah, and I've done that before. I was able to follow, before that, days before, I was able to follow my rules.
Perfect.
But this morning, that morning on June 13th, it's just like, I was like almost daring myself. I felt like,
self-sabotage, would you say?
Maybe. I was like, I knew what I was supposed to do, but I kept like being stubborn about it. And I was like, no, I'm going to prove that, that it's going to work out. It's going to work out.
There we go.
And then it got worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got even harder for me to get out because I was like, oh, I gotta, no. This is going to turn around. And then it didn't. And then I remember I was getting really emotional, and I was just exceptionally like just more emotional than I have been usually in trading. And I find myself like hitting the desk. I was just like, no, I don't want to get out. I know I should be getting out. I actually said this out loud to myself because I was like challenging this whole thing about, following your rules all the time. And I was like, no. And I said, I don't want to get out. I just don't want to, because I believe that I can fight with this and I can fix this, the market's not going to make me get out.
Right. So this is interesting. Yeah. Carry on.
Yeah. And so anyway, long story short, I did still end up positive for the day, but that position I lost on. And for some reason, it just really upset me so much more than the other days where I had a losing day. But that day, although I didn't have a losing day, I was really upset at myself for being stubborn and for not doing what I knew I was supposed to do. And it really bothered me because I know that I could have done, I'm better than that, but I just, I don't know what it is.
So if you allow me, I'm going to comment on this. Are you comfortable for me to comment on a few things, and I can open up some things, or would you be okay to go there?
Sure.
Okay. To a degree at least. So I want to explain something. So first of all, your inner dialogue that's happening is an inner dialogue between you and yourself, right? There's that conversation that's going on, and usually that conversation, if there is conflict, what's what I like to call misalignment. So you're out of alignment. You're not you're not taking the command. You're not in charge. So there's a bigger part of you that overtakes your decision-making process. We can agree to that because that voice initially came and said, you got to exit. This is your signal to exit, right? To be a safeguard yourself, right? But then something else came in and said, no, I want to prove that I don't have to exit, and I want to prove that I don't have to follow the rules, right? I'm just following what you're saying, correct? So that part of you is more the unconscious mind. That part of you is more connected towards something emotional about trusting in your decision-making process and trusting in yourself and believing that you don't want to be seen to be wrong. And you don't want to you want to almost prove yourself that you're not wrong, that you will get out of this, right? So that dialogue of, I want to prove myself, also sometimes, again, I'm not saying this is you, but I want to share this so our listeners can get value. Usually it becomes deeper in our conditioning, which is related to some belief system we have where we want to prove to the world that we're good enough, that we are right. We got this. And this is a challenge now. You want to challenge me. So now the meaning-making process becomes an internal dialogue between you and yourself. And that's the challenge where, no, I'm telling you to do something. No, I'm good enough. I'm better than you. And I'm going to show you that I can do this, right? So it almost becomes an internal competition. Now, the emotional charge that comes in, which is, you said to me, Sam, I was pretty angry with myself. I almost have that sense of resentment towards myself. Again, I'm just almost breaking it down as fast as I can. What's that creating? It's creating it's coming close to a root within us, an emotional charge. So somewhere inside of you, within your conditioning, when it comes to proving yourself to be wrong, you get emotional about that. You don't like to be wrong. So I don't even know you, and this is probably the second time we're meeting, correct? But I'm breaking this down, and you can comment if it's resonating. But if I had to project something, or should I say break this down, again, I need more time usually, but just for you to know, you have something within you that in your character, in your identity, in your personality, you hate to be wrong. Tell me if I'm reading that correctly.
I don't think you're wrong about that.
Okay.
No, well, I mean, I can be wrong and I can admit it a lot of times, but there's certain things like,
Yeah, there's certain things that it becomes emotional to you. It becomes like a charge.
It becomes emotional.
It becomes a charge. And that usually comes from, if you break it down, again, I don't want to go public on this podcast with you, but if we break it down to our conditioning, our childhood, certain things about our parents, certain things that I grew up with where I had to prove myself, I had to show people that I'm better than them, I had to do something to get acknowledged or to get seen or whatever that may be. Again, I'm just giving some examples for our listeners. That's what ties in to this emotional charge and the state of being. So remember, the state is like a program. It's how you think, how you feel, and how you react. That's all connected, okay? Now think about a state like multiple programs that resides within you. So when something happens outside of you, like a losing trade, you don't want to exit because now the dialogue kicks in. Your state of being changes. You're not the same person you started that day, correct? When you were saying, I was feeling good, Sam, I did my little bit, but a different part of you came out, a different character, a different...
Completely different.
Right? So what is happening there? I just want you to know what's happening is a state of being is changing. So a different program is kicking in, and that state dictates, now listen to this, it dictates the range of behavior that falls under that state. So if I'm angry with myself and I'm angry about this trade, now I'm going to fight it. That's my behavior. That's how I react to it. I'm going to fight it and I'm going to stay longer and I'm going to try and get out of it and And even though I know everything I'm doing is wrong, but that's my limit. That's all I can do. That's that state producing that to me. So that produces that range of behavior. If you're following me here, right? So each state produces a range of behavior that dictates how you behave. It dictates how you're going to respond to that trade, to that setup, to whatever you're working with, right? And when that changes, everything else changes because now you end up messing up other things or you end up acting. So you now start to don't see opportunities, you narrow your focus and so forth. It's exactly the same thing with traders that have fear. You know, when we are now something is happening in my trade and I can't exit, I don't want to exit my trade, although this is my signal I need to, and I'm talking about exiting a loss now, for example. What happens a lot of the time is that traders don't exit the loss because they don't accept to be a loser. They perceive it as I am losing if I'm exiting this trade. So now I'm a loser. I don't want to be a loser because my parents or my childhood everyone thought I was a loser. I don't want to feel a loser. So then I don't want to exit the trade. Or I don't want to exit the trade because if that means that I am lesser, I am not good enough as a trader. And I don't want to admit that I'm not good enough. I don't want to admit that my strategy is out of balance. It's wrong. I need to change my approach. I don't want to admit that because I know that my approach is the best and I believe that's it. There's no one else. And okay, well, you know what I mean? So there's always what I want to break this down and what I'm summing up this point with. There's always a meaning-making process to you individually that is unique to you, Tessa. So you have that, you see that and you're like, oh, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to be wrong about this. I don't have to listen to my rules. I'm going to recoup this versus someone else. Well, no, I can't exit because if I exit, that means I am a loser and I don't want to be a loser and I don't want to be broke and I don't want to lose money and so forth, right? So there's a meaning, but then there's another person like my partner and business partner and the Conscious Trading Academy students that we have and the guys we're working with from all around is looking at that and going, this is a healthy loss. I'm exiting. That's a healthy loss because it's not about not about the money you're making in the case here. It's about, that's a winning trade when you exit in the required time that you need to exit. That's a winning trade. That's actually a win for you. But the perception needs to change. The way you perceive it and the meaning you give it completely different. So now when you give it a different meaning, guess what happens, Tessa? You feel differently, right? Yeah. You feel different in your body. So you don't have that emotional response anymore. Now you're more disciplined. Now you feel good that you exited. You feel so good that you stick to your book of rules because that's what we call a healthy learning. You're not losing, you're learning. So that changes everything because how many learnings have you got today? Oh, you know what, Sam? I didn't make much profit today, but I learned this and this and this because when I exited, this is what happened to my trade. So therefore, now I need to change my strategy because that doesn't work. Now, a lot of the traders I work with, they come to me and they say, well, I don't have the discipline but my strategy is the best. So I'm like, okay, so you're telling me your strategy is the best. How do you know your strategies is the best if you keep breaking your rules? How do you know? So if you keep breaking your rules, you don't even know if your strategy is correct. The only time to give yourself a true assessment of the level of skill set you have is by sticking to the book of rules and to what you said you would be doing. That gives you a real picture. And of course, other elements that we do, which is journaling and making understand why you exited that trade earlier and the emotions that was associated with it and so forth. So we need to dig in. So once you understand where that's coming from, that's when you can start to change it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So most of us traders don't know this, right? Going into trading, and I just to continue with that day, I realized, after, even though I was upset and everything, and I was upset, at the market and everything, and I was like, after I had calmed down, I wanted to show that I can be disciplined, and I wanted to show, I know this is not good to say, but I was still mad at the market. I was like, the best revenge on the market, and I know that's not good to say, but it helped me at that point to say it, is to show that I am disciplined and I can follow my rules, and I will make mistakes here and there, but I'll learn from them. And like you said, like from every loss or from, any mistake that I make by not following my rules, that is a learning opportunity that I will 100%. Learn and continue to improve. And 100%. That would be the best revenge in the market. That's what I thought at the time.
Well, look, you
pre-framed
it exactly, but you pre-framed it in a healthy way. The most important thing is understanding that dialogue that's happening is you're not trying to prove something to someone, meaning yourself. You're not having a negative dialogue. You're having a more compassionate, more trusting relationship with yourself, that you're not putting yourself down in that process. This is really good. So sometimes when a trader has a loss, they beat themselves up. The language that is happening in their mind is, I know this because I've worked with traders for many years now. When they truly open up and they tell me what's going through their mind, it's a complete disaster because remember, our unconscious mind takes everything personal. So if I'm speaking negatively about myself, and I'm swearing at myself, and I can't believe you did that, and why, and da-da-da, now your unconscious mind is like a little child. It takes everything for face value, and it starts to believe that you are that person. It starts to go, I am this and this and this. I am whatever you're saying. So language, linguistics is why neurolinguistics is important, because there's a connection with our neurology and the language we use. It's like your program, right? So what am I speaking to myself when I hear a healthy loss? What's the conversation I'm having? This is what you just said was the right way. I'm taking a learning now. I'm not being emotional about it. I'm not beating myself down. And I'm growing from this experience. I'm making adjustments. As long as you're making adjustments, that's the most important thing. Every single loss has to come with some learning and adjustment. But if you're busy beating yourself up, think about this, Tessa, which a lot of traders do. They're busy having this negative dialogue, and they're emotional and they're upset. They're not learning anything. And then they'll do the same thing the week after. And then they'll do it again. And they go, this keeps happening to me. And I've heard that so many times. That's the unconscious pattern that they need to break free from. And they can liberate themselves emotionally. Remember, the name of the game here is how can you manage your emotional state? How good are you as a trader today to keep your emotions at bay? And if you can do that, and you do that through tools and learnings and pre-framings and scientific modalities today, if you know and you learn that skill, which is one of the important skills we teach, because it's so important. Think about this, even in your life, outside of trading, you need to know how to regulate your nervous system. You need to know how to, when something happens, how to calm yourself down. So the state, remember the program I was talking about, doesn't switch and take over. I need to put that at bay. I need to keep it at bay. I want to be in the driving seat, and whether we know this or not, this is the reality. And listeners can go check this up this is available about our neurology. It's available about our unconscious mind. 95% of us is a set of programs by the time we're 30 years old that is unconscious. And the moment we get into a car and we think about something and we end up we arrive at a different destination. Who do you think got you there? How did you end up crossing the road and going all around and traffic lights and getting to your destination? How many times has that happened to most of us where we move from point A to point B and we don't even know how we got there? What's happening is the conscious mind goes inwards. You're thinking about something and the unconscious mind comes out and takes over. That's how it works. The unconscious mind takes over when you're busy thinking about something within you. So understanding that what takes over needs to be a program, Tessa, that supports you in behavior and emotions and discipline, not a program that's going, move out of the way, Tessa. I don't want to admit that I'm wrong. I want to show that I can do this to the market. I don't want to admit, I know I can break my rules sometimes. And that's coming from an emotional place. Think about it, right?
Yeah. And you talk about emotions a lot. Can we talk about that a little bit more? Because emotions are natural. Emotions, we're humans, correct, right? We're not AI robots or whatever.
Correct. 100%.
And how do we use emotions in a healthy way in trading? Because it's natural.
Sure. Yeah, so I love that question, Tessa. This is a great conversation, by the way. I'm enjoying this. So emotions. Let's talk about emotions for a bit. So what's important to remember is that every single human being, part of our neurology, part of our making is that we have emotions, which is energy and motion, by the way. So, and it's a response to something outside of us. So we give a meaning to an experience and we react accordingly. Now, the idea here is I'm not saying that you will not react. We are all human. The idea is how long do you react and stay in that state? And are you able, emotionally speaking, to change your emotional state on demand? And we can do that today. We have the tools and the techniques that changes our state of being on demand, to change our nervous system by choice. This is one of the gifts we have as humans compared to every other species out there. We have on demand the ability to change our state of being and to come back to what we call balance, okay? Now, reacting is not the problem. We all react, but how do we respond is based on our emotional state and how long we stay there, right? Now, at the fundamental level, and this is an area that I specialize in as a practitioner, we have something called a Gestalt. Now, this is very interesting, and I'm going to try and touch.
What is it called again?
It's called Gestalt. Gestalt. Yeah, it's a German word for collection. You can look this up, Gestalt, okay? And what a Gestalt does is that it allows to accumulate all your emotional experiences of your past. So think about your body as the operating system. Remember I said it's a hard drive, right? Your body. And it stores every single experience you had. Now think of you as a trader, right? So every single time you felt a certain way around a certain trade where you felt fear, anger, frustration, that emotional charge gets stored in our body. Okay, that's where the emotions get stored. And over a time, because I'm having the same emotional response, now I create what is called a belief system, a pattern, because now my emotions are constantly going around a specific topic in my life. Now, when we have a lot of that emotions that we've built up over the years, we become more of emotional people. So we will have a reaction that is higher than someone else. So some people, some traders react much more intensely when they have a loss than someone else. We can agree to this, correct? Like some people deal with losses better. But why is that? This is the question. It's because our emotions are stored. And if I've stored so much trauma, so much emotions from my past over the years, even from my childhood, where now when something happens in this context of life, where I don't want to be proved that I'm wrong, because if I prove I'm wrong, it means I'm not good enough, or it means whatever because of my past, that brings up all the charge at once. That emotional charge comes up because that's the definition of that perception of reality, that experience. It brings up this type of emotion. So what I do in my private practice is I actually go in and I format that. I release all that emotion. It's like a folder that you delete. And it's incredible because you can go back, and this is measurable, by the way. So I can even do this with you, Tessa. So you can go back to any experience right now in your life, even 13th of June, and you can close your eyes for a moment and you think about that trade and what happened that day. And what will happen? You will feel something in your body. You will feel that anger, that frustration, whatever you felt then, it's still somewhere in your body, correct? If you really played it in your mind, like you sat there and you're like, now, why is that happening? It's because the body, which is the unconscious mind, doesn't know what's real or not. So it brings up that emotion. That's number one, right? But when you clear that, because there's still residue from that past experience, the charge is still there. You never really processed it. It stays with the memory. All memories and emotions are connected. So if you keep a lot of memories of you being frustrated in your trading, now you created a Gestalt, a folder of all those emotions and how they made you feel. So anything that resembles a loss or not, or proving to be wrong, the emotions gets higher and higher and higher over time, meaning more heightened, more stronger. What I do with one of my therapies, and this is why we are doing extremely well in this space, is I'm clearing all the emotional charge. So you can go back to any experience in your life, and I mean any experience in your life after we do this type of work, and you will feel nothing. You can play it in your mind, and you will feel nothing in your body. Why? Because we've released the charge. Now, how is that good for you when you've released the charge? It's because when you find yourself in that situation again in the future, you will no longer have that same reference of emotion because that's what you felt so many times before. Therefore, you will feel it again. Now the tank is empty. The folder no longer exists. So you have an opportunity to manage a new emotional response. You have an opportunity to think differently and have an opportunity to liberate yourself from that experience. So now you have a completely different behavior. Because remember, we can never think greater than we feel. So if I have a lot of frustration and anger from my past, I bring it into this experience and I'll feel it again now. So we only go beyond the feeling when our emotions is no longer existing. So it's not a problem anymore for me because I don't feel like it's a problem. You know, I say this a lot, and to my community and my academy, if people really get what I'm about to share, it changes everything. It really does. You know, most problems in our life, even in trading, it's only a problem because it makes us feel a certain way. It really makes us feel. It becomes a bigger problem when we feel it. But if we don't feel it for a moment, think about it. It's not much of a bigger problem. We move on much more faster and we focus on what we want to create for ourselves. But most of the time we're stuck in the emotions of our past, and therefore we keep repeating the same experiences, the same behaviors, and the same results in our life and in trading. It's all connected. It's really all connected. And this is where I need to always remind people that it's all interconnected. It's not, you don't sit as Tessa on your desk and you're now a different Tessa. You're the same Tessa that goes out with your friends. You're the same Tessa that reacts to different things in your life. You will have the same reaction in your trading. It's the same identity. Yeah. Think about it for a moment, right?
Yeah. So for, let's just say it's not just for trading. This is for just, every aspect of your life, right? What are some practical ways that someone can help themselves if they choose to want to try to do it, try it on their own? Are there any practical tips or ways that they can clear those built up, feelings and emotions that's in the body, like you mentioned?
Yeah, so very good question. So the short answer is, if you want to clear it, like you want to format, you want to release all of it, you need to do practitioner work. You need to do intervention work. That's the short answer. So you cannot release that on your own. You need a guide. You need a practitioner that walks you through the process using an actual tool to go and address that on a deeper level of the body, deeper level of the mind. Okay. However, what you can do yourself, for those that don't have the opportunity or the means to work with a professional, what is important and what you can do is you can learn to self-regulate your nervous system, your state of being, when you are out of balance. So I gave the example earlier today, and I said one of the things we do, because an area we also emphasize on is being empowered by the tools yourself, right? So we have certain things we do, which is inducing through a guided experience where you're reprogramming yourself and you are doing a certain type of breath that is releasing and getting you into a more peak performance state, a state that is serving you, right? However, the reality is, and full transparency, that on its own can only serve you for so much. Because what happens is, if you are going into a trade and you're feeling good and you're in the best peak performance state, but you still have a lot of charge from your past experiences, it only takes one thing, which is like an anchor, it's pulling you down. It takes one little trigger that switches the program back on. So you have to go back and switch it on again. So it's almost taking more effort for you to go, okay, I'm not feeling good now. I need to go and sit again and do my practice. And then you do it again. And then you switch on. But you still yo-yoing between two, because you are doing it by yourself, which is amazing. And you can regulate your nervous system by yourself, which is amazing. And that could sustain you for a good time. But it only takes one thing outside of you that is a trigger to one of your charge of your past experiences that brings you back into that state again. And the old part of you comes out and goes, oh, I'm the angry part that can't deal with the loss. You know what I mean? And I don't want to admit it, right? But that's the version of you that hasn't overcome herself. She's still stuck in that experience where she hasn't forgiven herself. She's a bit hard on herself. She doesn't want to be perceived wrong. And more importantly, it's all between her and herself, not the world. You're not trying to prove everything to the world. It's all a dialogue between you and yourself, where you want to prove yourself to be right, and that's the internal conflict that's happening, and that's coming from your neurology, right? That's the charge we're talking about. It's an experience and an emotion associated with it, and a meaning-making process. Some of them beliefs are formed through that experience as well. So I want to move away from that belief, for example.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because, we meet a lot of traders and then traders in our community, and, how are some of them able to just self-regulate so well? And seem to not have, they probably do, but seem to not have these issues, and they are just like master traders, and,
they're
so
probably
talented.
Working with a good coach. And they're not telling you.
Possible.
Yeah. So a lot of the traders, just so you know, and I'm sharing with you, a lot of traders work with professionals like myself that don't disclose it really. They keep that as their secret weapon, right? Or they're doing certain practices that they don't disclose as well, that helps them. But also you will find these successful traders. Like, for example, I like to bring in my partner as an example, David Capablanca, because he's a beacon of light in this space, a 7-figure trader, one of the most disciplined people I've worked with in my career. And it's a process, it's an ongoing process, but he had to do the work. He had to release the Gestalt I was mentioning you. He's done that. He had to deal with old demons of the past, with old emotions and limiting beliefs and all of that. So that allowed him to break free and break through to different levels. And this is why he continues to grow. We're always working with each other. We all spend time. We're doing the same thing in that our ecosystem. So we're always ever working on ourselves. And those traders that are grounded, that have profitability, that are sustaining, they are definitely behind the scene. I can guarantee you, working on themselves all the time. They're doing something for personal development. They're making sure their environment is good. They're making sure that they don't have influence from their external triggers, are all contained. They are aware of the triggers. They have dealt with them, and so forth. And that is part of the growth as a trader. So, it's a holistic approach. There's not one thing that. It's a combination of many things that leads you to become, a trader, a master trader, I like to call it, someone that is actually sustaining and maintaining what they're set themselves to do.
This is very similar to like elite athletes, right? In sports.
100%.
They all have coaches and mentors, to help them break through.
I have my own, just for the record. We all need someone that can support us, especially when it's someone we can model, someone that's doing the right thing. This is how I like to, if someone is doing something that I want to learn from, that they're doing successfully, that's the type of person I like to work with, or I like to be mentored by. And also personally, at least in my model of the world, it always has to be, at least for my work, it has to be scientific. I always like to go and understand how our mind works on a neurological level. Okay, so what happens? Where's this emotion coming from? What chemicals are happening? Why am I perceiving it this way? So understanding the fundamentals and working with that part of you, that's where you grow. Like, you got to go to the places that are going to make you uncomfortable. You got to feel those experiences to let go of them. But if you don't face our shadow, that shadow keeps crawling in and more often overtakes us and self-sabotages us in some cases, I mean, a common one when we talk about self-sabotage, this might sound crazy to some of our listeners here, but believe it or not, if we have a cap in our self-worth, so if we feel that, you know what, I can only see myself making $100,000 a month. Okay, that's just me seeing. If you say to me, but can you see yourself making 200,000 or even 500,000 or even $1 million? Oh, no. Wow, that makes me feel uncomfortable, right? That makes me feel uncomfortable. Why is that happening? There is a ceiling within our being, within our conditioning that says, this is where it's like almost a prerequisite or like a little box. This is your box. So if you come close to the ceiling of that box, I'm going to put you back in your box because that's what you believe you can, because that makes uncomfortable. The emotion state changes, right? So I've worked with traders in the past that when they reached a certain number, a figure that is related to them, all of a sudden they can't ever go beyond that number. And it's always the same number or in and around the same number. And this sounds crazy, but it's reality, right? I'm sharing my own experience working with traders. Maybe some other traders haven't had that. I'm sharing what I've had with my traders. And what's happening is the moment that happens, the meaning-making process in the mind goes, oh my God, it's just another number, by the way. It's just another zero. It's the same strategy, same thing. He does it every day. But when he gets to it, something starts to change. His state changes. He starts to panic. He starts to have fear. He starts to go, ooh, this is a bit much. And then something takes over, which we spoke about. And what I call self-sabotage is the process, which is the program, and puts you back into where you are more comfortable, which is your comfort zone. And then you stay there. So we need to break those. We need to understand, why am I feeling this way? Because that's something happening. You can't lie to yourself. I am feeling uncomfortable about this number. Cool. Why? Where's that coming from? And then you trace that back and you update the system.
Sam, can you give some examples of the traders that you've worked with that kind of money mindset problem, that you mentioned that has a cap? Once you get there, you're like, oh.
Yeah, sure. So again, because I sign NDAs with my traders, I'm not allowed to disclose names, but I can disclose one name, and that's only because we went public. And I'll go back to making it easy. I'll bring up David again. So David was one of the traders that I've been working with for over the years, and working with him over the years, there was a time and space where this was before he was a 7-figure trader, that when he was reaching a certain figure, a certain number, his neurology and his mind starts to change and started to do what we call a comparison. So he was comparing himself and the money he was making to other people that he in the space, meaning non-traders, and it felt wrong. It felt unauthentic to him. It felt that it's unjust. And how can someone make a few $1,000s in a few minutes? That mindset, that it's a set of programs, of thought process that kicks in, that's coming from his conditioning. So David is an example that I can disclose because we've mentioned this online before. We've disclosed this before publicly. I worked with him in changing the beliefs around that. All the beliefs that sit around, what does he believe around money? What does he believe around making that? Is it unfair? Oh, it's unfair. Where did that come from? So really changing that and using tools, of course, to go in and reprogram those thought processes enabled him to feel more comfortable with working with hundreds and thousands of dollars today. It doesn't make him flinch. But he even mentioned, and he used the example once, that it felt like he was a pilot, and the closer he got to those numbers, there was turbulence. There was like turbulence. He kept saying, I felt like I was fighting, and there was like turbulence happening. Although it was the same setup, same things he was doing on a day-to-day basis, but that created that shock to him, that emotional response that wasn't serving him. And that was his cap. That's what he was sitting to. And that happens a lot, by the way, with many, many traders. It's a common pattern. That's why there's a lot of traders get stuck around a certain figure and a certain number, because the perception of what that means to them in their mind changes. So working with $1,000 versus working with $100,000 versus working with $10,000, every single trader in the space today, it's all different to them. Some traders, $1,000, it's like $100. Some traders, $1,000, it means so much to them that it's like their life savings. That's the reality, right? So it's how does that make you feel is the answer. And when you change how it makes you feel, that makes you feel more liberated, and it doesn't overpower you.
So thanks for sharing about your work with David Capablanca, and going back to that, it has something to do. Did it have something to do with his upbringing? Or
yes,
because I can relate to that too. I'm experiencing that right now, but on the lower level, that cap. It's like, is this possible? You know what I mean?
So that's something to do with your conditioning, your past. How you were brought up around money, how you were brought up around self-worth. How do you perceive your self-worth? Everyone has a different level of self-worth, and that's not a taboo topic, right? It's actually something we should all be comfortable to speak about. And the nice thing is we can elevate our self-worth. We can change how our self-worth. So if my self-worth sits at a certain level in my life, therefore I believe I'm only capable of achieving X amount. And until I have the belief system, listen to this, a belief system that says, no, I can make millions, and I feel comfortable about it, and I really feel it in my body, and my body is not lying, because the body doesn't lie. The body, it's an emotional. So the language of the body is emotions. Remember, the language of the body, the unconscious mind, it's emotions. And emotions and energy never lies. So you can feel. So when someone affirms and says, I can be a millionaire trader, and if he believes in it, it's a different connection in the body. But if someone doesn't feel comfortable around it, or doesn't believe in it for whatever reason, which can all be changed, that's the good news, it changes how they feel around it. So it's a different feeling.
Yeah. Is it almost like fake it till you make it?
Well, you can't really fake it if you don't feel it. So I don't believe in faking. I mean, fake it till you make it is good when you are priming your mind, when you are conditioning yourself to see yourself in that experience. That's good. Fake it till you make it. But fake it till you make it without the feeling and connecting it emotionally in your body, it's not real to you. It doesn't land. It stops. It doesn't feel right. You need to feel. You need to feel what you are saying. You need to connect with it emotionally. So that's where there's no charge. There's actually healthy connection there, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, Sam. But I'm having trouble. You mentioned it a lot about connecting the emotions to the body, so that you can feel that charge. Yes. How do you do that?
So feeling something you are, have you ever heard of affirmations before? You've heard affirmation? Yeah. So a lot of people do affirmations, right? So they stand up and they look themselves in the mirror and they keep saying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that. So affirmations mean nothing, mean absolutely nothing. They do nothing if you are not connecting with it emotionally. Because the body is the unconscious mind. Remember what I said, the body is the unconscious mind. The body is your operating system. So in order for me, how do I feel it? You need to make sure, ask yourself, why am I not feeling it in the first place? That's what you should be asking yourself. Because if you're not feeling it, there's a block between you and what you're wanting to experience. And usually those blocks are limiting beliefs, are negative emotions, are old perceptions, old ideas, old ways that you've been conditioned. Not necessarily you're doing this to yourself. It's just your experience of life to this date. Sometimes it's culture related. I work with a lot of Asian, and I'm just to give you something very beautiful actually. So I have a lot of Asian. I've worked in my experience with Asian traders. So when I say Asian traders, I mean descent of Asian. So they're originally Japanese or Chinese or but they're American or others. I've also worked here in Dubai with others. But one thing that is in common about the Asian culture, and I'm sure you would define this, is there is a sense of, we're hardworking people. We're very disciplined. We need to prove, we need to, not obey. That's not the right word, but we need to respect our elders, and we need to, show them that we're capable, and we need to show them that we're good, and we need to prove them that we are an A students, and we need to, because anything below A doesn't even sit well in an Asian home. We want all A grades. We want to be all high achievers. And if I'm not a high achiever, I'm not good enough.
Yeah. I can relate to that growing up.
So thank you for sharing and being, transparent about that, because I think it's important and I appreciate that. But now think about what that does to you. Think about that for a moment, what that does to you. What that does to you, it makes you now always in your life having to, and I say this with respect, of course, having to prove something to someone. Meanwhile, you're trying to prove that to yourself, by the way. But indirectly, you're trying to prove that to your parents. You're trying to prove it to maybe your siblings, if you have any. But you're trying to prove something all the time. And this is one area that I've seen from my lovely Asian, I call them my amazing traders, conscious traders today, that have shifted because they've let go of that perception and that expectation, and they've taken off so much pressure off their back because now they feel more free to be themselves and to trust the process and to take it one step at a time and to reach the all-time highs of where they're supposed to be without the pressure of the self. You got to prove to me, you got to prove that you can't lose, and so forth. So I hope this is, and I appreciate you being in this conversation. I hope it's resonating, and I trust it is to a degree.
Yes, it is. You brought up something that's, pretty sensitive to me. I kind of grew up with that pressure,
Mm-hmm.
Pressure to perform and pressure to work in a safe type of job that makes money, but even though you're not happy and things like that. And that's, because, it's not my parents' fault, but that's how they were brought up. And
100%.
So it kind of just stuck with, me and my siblings. And so I think it carries on into trading.
No, I think it's for sure. It's not even, I think it's 100%. It carries on to trading. And this is why, first of all, I honor you. And I want to just take a moment and say, I respect you for pursuing what you want in your life and giving this trading experience, working towards it and giving it a go and putting in the work, because you chose not to fall to the norm of the conditioning, and you chose to break free from it to give this a real go for yourself. And that's a very good indicator that you trust in your abilities and you are putting yourself first. So I want to take a moment and acknowledge that, because that's very powerful. And that's important that you give yourself credit for it, because from what I'm reading today, I think you're a person that you don't give enough credit to yourself.
Yeah, I'm pretty hard on myself, and doing all this it's just so hard. It's scary. It's scary to break free.
I know.
It's so scary, and trading alone is already scary, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah,
it doesn't have to be, but the idea is moving away from the pressure and bringing in the right thought process and self-belief, and doing things from a grounded with the right skill set and taking things step without the pressure. Because imagine everything we're speaking about, like the level of, you mentioned you've been trading for a few years now, correct?
Oh, well, I've been trading since 2014, but that doesn't mean I've been trading for 10 years. Sometimes when I say that, people think, oh, you're a seasoned trader. No, I'm still, developing. And so.
But you have experience, right? You have experience, right?
Definitely.
So my thing to you and what I'm saying is, just imagine taking all that wealth of experience that you've gained over the years, and you put yourself into a space today where you've taken the wisdom and you've let go of all the emotions that was associated with that with the pressure and the disappointment and the resentment towards yourself sometimes, and the hard conversations maybe with the family, and all those stories, those emotional stories, and you liberated yourself from it, and you are now back to what I call the center, the balance, where it's just you and yourself, and you have no more pressure, and you are actually rooting for yourself, so you believe in yourself. Because what happens is, you must understand, when we grow up in an environment where the expectations are high, and we are looking to always prove ourselves and to, be seen and to show ourselves that we are worthy, what happens is there becomes an inner critic inside of us, an inner critic that's ready and on standby to go, let me wait for you to make a mistake. And oh my God, I can't wait, because here mom's voice comes out or dad's voice comes out. and starts to put you and make you feel, not so good. And that's a program at the end of the day. So when we understand that fundamentally, that's what needs to change, because you don't need to have that voice, because we both agree that our parents did the best they can with the resources they had. That's how they've been conditioned. Now, they did that to you because they thought that by the way they approach it, they're going to make you have a better life and security and all the rest that comes with it. Meanwhile, we know in our reality that we know within ourselves what makes us happy and what doesn't. No one can tell us what makes us happy and what doesn't. No one can tell us what freedom looks like. We want to break the pattern. The new generation of traders out today are traders that want to break the pattern. They want to create more financial freedom for themselves because they want to move away from the old paradigm of thinking, the old paradigm of doing things. Play it safe. Do a 9-to-5 job that you hate and makes you feel miserable, but it's safe and it's secure and it's certain, right? Certainty, But in reality, it's killing your soul. It's killing you slowly, and it's almost your soul is screaming. Exactly, soul sucking and soul screaming inside of you. And we've all been there. Like, there's none of us that haven't been there. All of us have been in that space at one stage of our life. I call it the previous life today. But the most important thing is when you start to have everything in your being, in your conditioning inside of you, rooting for you and taking away all the pressure and having a better loving communication within yourself, then you start to believe you're worthy. Then you start to believe you're good enough. Then you start to trust in yourself more. Then you start to have more confidence. All of these qualities are qualities we all need as a trader in this trading space to sustain and maintain, not to wait for something to go wrong and then blame ourselves. I mean, it's a completely different experience if you think about it for a moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned confidence. It's so important. I had to create that confidence for myself, just small little wins to kind of build up that confidence, especially when you're working by yourself, trading by yourself. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Like you have to work extra hard at pumping yourself 100%. up and listening to other traders and podcasts, like Chat with Traders and other podcasts. You have to constantly do that. Otherwise, it's so easy to give up.
Yes, 100%. And remember, look, it's a process. That's what we always say. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a process. But in that process, you have to. It's whether you realize this now or later, you have to have the right mindset and belief system and emotional intelligence to get you there. If those are playing against you, it just it prolongs the experience longer. It makes it more frustrating. And that's why, sadly, today, many traders don't succeed because they lack those qualities within them.
Yes, so true. I know we've gone past our time, but
no problem.
And I know it's late for you in Dubai.
No problem.
Thank you so much, Sam, for your wisdom and for sharing your knowledge and sharing what you do with us traders. For listeners who want to learn more about you, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure. Thank you for that. So anyone can reach out to us at theconscioustradingacademy.com. My profile is on there. My details on there. David Capablanca's details on there. That's the easiest way. They can also follow me on Instagram. I'm not a big Instagram person, but I'm starting to get on there now more and more often. It's Sam.Daghash. They can follow me on there on Instagram as well. And they're welcome to reach out, ask any questions. We have a great conference that myself and David do in California, in LA, once or twice a year. The next one is coming up in October 11, 12, and 13. And we have traders from all around the world and across the US that come through for deep diving into the world of what we're speaking about, but also bringing in David's skill set and trading strategies as well, that just combine that holistic. We need the skill set. Shouldn't forget, we need to be skilled traders. But equally important, we need to have everything else we spoke about today to make that journey much more easier for us and to really live that experience. But really, thank you so much, Tessa.
Yeah, I remember checking your YouTube video on the last few conferences you had, and I really liked the energy, the kind of the vibe. And so,
Thank you.
So both you and David would be there working with. Okay.
Yes. We host it. And we have a 3 days. And first day is a VIP for the VIP. We sit together and we on the 54th floor in the US Bank Tower, and we have a meet and greet, mastermind conversation. And he also does a tour to his podcast for some visitors that like to see his setup. Saturday is the full conference day, which I'd love you to come, by the way, Tessa, if you're around. We have a full day conference with like-minded traders like yourself coming in, learning from each other, and having actual experiences. So I teach them how to program themselves. I do certain things that hasn't been done in this space, with all honesty. And then the third day, and then obviously David has these sessions as well. And then the third day, usually we have a guest speaker as well. And we surprise guest speaker. And we also do a mastermind in the Athletic Club in LA. Beautiful places. Sorry, I didn't mention Saturday. It's in the Hilton in downtown LA as well. And it's really just about bringing people together with the right intention and attention to grow, to self-develop themselves, but being practical about it, moving away from the fluff and actually going, here are actual tools and science that you can take home with you, and you can start learning how to apply it yourself. Like one of the things I mentioned today, for example, priming. How do you actually do that correctly? How do I condition myself? So these are the sort of things we like to get into and cover the science behind it as well.
Great. Awesome. Thank you again, David. Sorry. Thank you again, Sam.
Thank you. And she calls me David at the end. It's beautiful. Well,
because you were just mentioning David, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's all good. David is a dear friend, and we are, we are one. And to be honest, we're very, very, very passionate about what we're doing. But Ian, thank you for being on listening, and really, Tessa, I really enjoyed the call with you. I love the fact that you were also open, and I appreciate the vulnerability that you allowed today. So I really honor you for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You've reached the end of this episode of Chat with Traders, but rest assured there are more episodes loaded with real market insight and zero hype on the way soon. So to stay updated with each great new release, subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and we'd love it if you'd leave a rating and review. We'll catch you next time on Chat with Traders.